Welcome to Rugby Lives. I'm your host, Alex Mead. This week, we're in the Midlands to meet a world record-breaking kicker, Dusty Hare. He's known for his time with England, Leicester, and also bringing on the next generation for both Tigers and Northampton Saints. And he is also going to tell us about the time Colin Smart drank that bottle of aftershave. This is his Rugby Life. Hi Dusty, welcome to Rugby Lives. Although rather you're welcoming us really because we're at your hometown club Newark.
You are.
Tell me a little bit. This is literally where it started for you, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. I left school early, going through with my A levels because I was offered a cricket contract at Trent Bridge, and so that was for the following year. So I left school and I was going to help on the farm. So I came down here as a 17-year-old. Played one game in the second team, and then I was straight into the first team, and that was it really. I was playing county rugby for Notts, Links and Derbyshire here against Leicestershire because Newark had the floodlights, and the county rugby was played here. So my first class game of rugby was here at Newark, playing for Notts, Links and Derby.
How did the cricket balance with the rugby? Did the cricket mind the fact you were playing rugby?
No,
season?
Not at all. They were, it was a stage when there were people playing football, and that. I mean, Phil Neal, who was he's same age as myself. He was at Worcester and he played football for Lincoln City.
Oh, okay.
So there was in those days in the 70s, that it was sort of the known thing. I mean, the rugby season was September to the end of April, and the cricket season was just those 4 months in the summertime. Now they're starting in March. So yeah.
Before we get go back even further than that, your name. So Dusty Hare sounds like, what a great hero from a sort of swashbuckling story. Where did that name come from? Because it's not actually your name, is it?
No, my proper name is William. It's a family name, William Hare. But in the good old days when my father did turn up at the hospital to see me when I was first born, I was there in the cradle wrapped up in blankets with my little head poking out, and probably like it is now, bald with a bit of fluffy hair and freckles, and it just looked like I'd been born in a barn. So he said, we'll call him Dusty.
And that's how it stuck.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I remember another little part of that story was also the fact that obviously he's a busy farmer, but he arrived 2 days after you were born. So it wasn't like he was waiting.
Well, I always give it the story. It was 2 days. I mean, it was, my father was how do you put it? He was it was in the times when men were men and and the women were women. Yeah.
So as it progressed with the cricket, was there a tipping point? Like, was it the cricket going down?
Cricket went down and the rugby was going up. So it was quite simple. I got picked for England in '74 when I was still playing at Nottingham, because I chose Nottingham to play my rugby because I was still playing cricket for Nottinghamshire, or in the squad at Nottingham. So yeah, it was one of those things where that was the decision I made at that time, and and I obviously got picked for England in '74, and I know now, looking back, I mean, I was not ready to play for England properly because I wasn't. I had
like 22.
Yeah, 22, and I wasn't coached. I'm not saying that we haven't been coached, but when I got to Leicester and the coach at Chalky White, you realised what you'd missed. And the coaching at Leicester was so much better with Chalky White.
I want to go back onto Chalky in a sec, but how did they tell you? Did you get? Did it soften the blow, the fact you had rugby, or were you released from a contract? Because you played first class cricket.
Yeah, not many games though, but I realised I wasn't making it. Okay. So there was no point going any further.
Yeah.
That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
And that's when I made the decision, right, I'm finishing cricket. So I finished cricket in '76.
Yeah.
and I was going to make rugby a go. I started with Nottingham at the beginning of that season, and then realised, right, no, I've got to move on to Leicester, and that's what I did. I made that decision to move to Leicester.
And Chalky obviously approached you through, I think he saw you through county rugby, and he was sort of encouraging you to come across.
Yeah, he's always encouraged me, but I'm always been my own man, and won't do things that I don't think is for me, rightly or wrongly. But that was one of those things that that I did, and in that season, he coached Notts and Derby in that first class season, and while I was here at Newark, and I'd look at it here. Newark was my foundation of where I started the season as a boy and ended the season as a man. So
What was it with Leicester? What was the big? Did it feel like a step up?
Oh yes, step up.
What was the difference?
The coaching, the effort that all the players gave. It was a different world. It was, and I realised then, I've been a bit foolish. I should have gone to Leicester earlier. What
are the specifics? There were so many little bits I've heard about Chalky. And randomly we knew him because he used to come down to do our Brixham week down in Devon every year, and such a lovely, lovely man. But it was also all the little stories I've heard. There's even little bits like saying drinking water at half time and things like that he was said to introduce. But what were the things that stand out from you now that were like pioneering that he did at the time?
Pioneering little things. So, those little bits and bobs making you prepared for the game of rugby. And his coaching was, we used to play down corridors on the pitch. So, we basically were a rugby playing side, and so we were playing 15-a-side rugby. And, we were attacking either the end corridor or we went short on the blindside corridor. And, he just put situations, and this is all before rugby got analysed to a T. But
so he was almost simplifying it.
Oh, he simplified it. Yeah, the game's not complicated. It still isn't complicated. It's just that everybody's trying to make it complicated.
And then he went straight in, and pretty much as soon as you sort of joined there, this Leicester side the cup was building, and you guys became the preeminent side. It was like the first side to really dominate the cup.
Yeah, no, it was. I went in '76, and there was a young player called Paul Dodge in the centre, and then. There was Peter Wheeler, Robin Cowling. There was some good players at the club, but then a few more came. Les Cusworth came. So it started to become a really good side. And
why was that Leicester side set apart? Because there was the three titles fairly quickly, 3 cups in succession.
We lost in the first final. We got to in '78, and then we won '79, '80, '81.
And you were going through those cup finals as well. Was there a sense, because bearing in mind this cup only launched in '72 or something like that,
something like that, yeah.
It was in the first decade. Was it feeling like it was building to something? Because the attendances seemed to be rocketing up every year you played.
When we beat Gosforth in 1981, it was a big crowd. I'll say a big crowd. I think there was 30,000.
Yeah, it was about 27, 28, 30. So it was getting to the late. But by the time you finished, though, your last final, it was 50, 60,000.
Near enough, certainly. Well, I won't say it. Yeah, but it was a very big crowd at Twickenham in '89, and the supporters at Leicester. So when I joined in 1976. They had 600 members. When I left in 1989, there was 6,000 members.
That's incredible.
I'm led to believe, yeah.
How did Leicester build? Why did Leicester build? Was it
the rugby we were playing, and we were winning things.
Yeah,
and so it just drew everybody there, and and it was a good day out. And watching a good cracking game of rugby, hopefully they went home satisfied.
Was it the first steps? Were you starting to see things like the influence of Chalky White? Was that all sort of little baby steps towards the professionalism of the sport?
Yes, I think look. I mean, rugby was going to go professional because look, Twickenham was. I mean, how much money were they making in for the internationals and things? It was it was suddenly became a lot bigger and sponsorship and everything was all coming into the game more. So it was going to it was eventually going to go professional.
Any boot money at Leicester? I always ask this question. Everyone says no. Everyone says no.
Now we had a bloke called John Allen as our secretary, and he was an accountant, and he was the tightest bloke ever. So you got your travelling expenses to the county border.
Yeah.
And he knew to the half mile how far you went from your home to your county. So yeah, we got our travelling expenses to the county border. And that was our expenses. That's the money we got to, and I got, but you see, a good contingent of the side were Leicester based.
Yeah.
So
Robbie Cowan gave me the same answer. We actually did him for a different feature. We're going to get him on the podcast. He's got so many stories to tell, and obviously he went from Gloucester to Leicester. And he said a similar thing as other clubs did it, not us. Bath did it, not Leicester. And then when I spoke to Bath, we had Graham Dorr on here, and he said, well, if they did, I never saw any. You can't believe they're missing out, Graham. But and then obviously you're breaking through to England. You obviously broke through quite early, and then there was like a bit of a hiatus.
Yeah.
But then when you came back in, that was again the building to like this Grand Slam side of 1980, because it was 4 years after your debut, and I think in 74 was your debut.
I played in 74, then 78, a couple of guys, I don't know, one game in 78, another game in 79, or two games, and then went on an England tour to Japan. But on that tour, I played in the first game. I didn't have a great game overall, but I did kick the winning conversion against Japan, which we should have, and in those days should have beaten easily. But and then Alistair Hignell played fullback for the next two tests against Fiji and Tonga.
Because what's interesting about your England side as well, your one cap you did win early doors against Wales was a win, which in 74 was quite a rarity. In fact, most of the 70s, it was quite a rarity for England.
Well, it was, especially against Wales. It was the only time England beat Wales in the 70s. So, yeah. But that was England's selection at that time. I mean, there was a new coach came in, and obviously my face didn't fit. So, that well, you take that. You know, that's how it is. But I mean, England selections all the time, in those, I mean, there were so many players in and out, and I mean, you can't form a team when you keep changing the side.
Then when you do, I mean, luckily, I think it was probably the years you didn't play for England sound like ones to miss. There was like wooden spoons in sort of 76, and then the year you came back, I think went fourth and third. They did start to build, and that consistency you talk about seems to be what I've heard a few times.
And when that Grand Slam team were put together in 1980, the England team was basically Leicester and the north of England put together. And at that time, the North England was strong with France. Yeah. So we'd played for the north of England against. Who did we play at? Argentina.
Yeah.
At Welford Road.
Yeah.
And we won. And that was basically the side that did so well. And then you had Dickie Jeeps, who I think was president of the Rugby Union, was aghast at the way we played, but we won against Argentina. Something like that.
Especially around those sort of times.
Yeah. And it's always sort of I've always found a problem with the Rugby Union, some of the things that people say and how it goes. It just shakes my head. Yeah.
But did it feel like, because you obviously quite famously with a game against Wales, tell me about that kick, because this is late in the game, you're down by a kick.
Right. We were hammering Wales, weren't we? Yeah, they'd scored 2 tries. On the day, it was a very soft pitch, but Twickenham was an awful pitch to play on. It was nobody. It wasn't manicured like it is
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
It was a field,
Yeah.
and basically it wasn't even. I couldn't class it as a field. A cabbage patch, it would be
Yeah.
the right pronunciation of what the Twickenham was.
Yeah.
And they missed 7 kicks at goal,
7.
and I got 3 out of 7. And the one I got was the one, obviously, but it was just on the 22,
Okay.
just on the 15. It was just in my.
Yeah. Did it not get further and farther away as you tell this story?
It gets to the side of the halfway line. I missed one the following year at Wales.
Yeah.
When it was further out, and I hoofed it. I mean, I didn't just miss. I missed it badly.
Yeah.
But it would have been quite unique if I'd kicked that one as well. But no, it was it was a tough match. That match against Wales, really tough. It's one of the toughest games I've ever played in.
Yeah. How important was that one in relation to winning that Grand Slam?
Well, it was the link that won us the Grand National, because we went to Grand Slam.
It was that good. Your kit was that good. You won the Grand National as well as the Grand Slam.
The Grand Slam, because we went over to France and beat France, and then we went to Scotland for the final game. And that was and we won that. We didn't win it by canter, but we played some good rugby and won it. I think it could have been 30 odd points to 15, 16, something like that.
Did it feel like it changed the mentality in the side once you?
How the confidence? I mean, it was unbelievable. The side was so confident.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter who we played that day. We were going to win. We'd got a good side.
It was such a long time since the last Grand Slam.
Yeah, no, it was good. We had you had class players. You'd got Maurice Colclough, Roger Utley, Tony Neary, Frank Cotton. You got some players, but the England selection never played some of these players together. I mean, it was incredible. I go back. So in 1974, Jan Webster was the scrum half. I think he only played something like 6 internationals, and 3 of them are the most 3 important fixtures that England had won. I think they won over in New Zealand and they won over in South Africa, and he played in all those.
Yeah,
and he only got 6 caps.
Yeah,
and then he didn't play with John Finlan, his club fly half, who did play for England as well. Never played together. Selection, what were you doing?
Yeah, it does. And Colclough always seems to be a character that pops up. We did a big thing on him in the magazine, and so many characters as well. You seem to have kick around that squad.
Characters, yeah.
Who stands out for you amongst that squad when you look at it?
Oh, all of them in different ways. I can tell you, I admire Franny, Roger Utley, Tony Neary. They were just unique, good, really good men, good players.
Yeah,
and we had Billy Beaumont, Sir Billy is, I mean, he was a good leader. He led from the front. I mean, you look at the size of him now. I don't think he'd get in a side now.
What was it about his captaincy? Because obviously,
because he led from the front. I'm going to put my head in there. I want the rest of you to do that.
Yeah.
And that, and he led from the front, and he was strong enough character.
Because he was also one of the few players who, even now in rugby, we've got so few characters that break through into the mainstream. Even if you go back now to modern days, it's still the same thing we're talking about, players not breaking through. That's why we've got Joe Marler now, but Bill did. He was like one of the first ones that kind of got into the national conscious as an English player, because...
Well, I just think. Now I think the coaches, the players daren't do anything to express themselves. Luckily, at Northampton, a club who I've got a lot of affection for, was that they're playing some great stuff and they're allowed to express themselves. So the coaches there in Phil Dowson and Sam Vesti are allowing their players to go out there and play rugby, and they don't mind if they make mistakes because they're trying to play. Yeah, and that and that's we don't have. How many coaches do we have that? They're telling her to kick it. Yeah,
Yeah. You know,
Put it down in the opposition's half. Let them, you know. I mean, there's some of the kicking now. I cringe at the kicking out of hand when I think of the great Welsh fly halves who could kick the ball where they wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, Gareth Davis, and just torpedo kicks, spiral kicks into the corner. I mean, it made you a nightmare at fullback.
What did you, kicking wise, how did you learn to kick? Because obviously, you know, I'm going to come onto your records and stuff later on, but how did you actually learn to kick? Was there someone who was teaching you? Was it just you kicking around in a farm with a pile of sand?
No, there's no such thing as sand. He dug a hole in
You
the
just
ground.
dug a hole. You literally did that heel thing.
Oh, no, look, as a boy, I was playing with the ball all the time.
Yeah.
And a rugby ball, I was kicking a rugby ball all the time. You know, and then I went to the Magnus Grammar School here in Newark, and you know, and that they played rugby, and luckily, I think I look at my rugby career very luckily. The school was one of the best in Notts, Links and Derby. So you know, it was high standards and good quality players, and yeah, it was very enjoyable playing rugby, and you know, I had a great schooling.
But would you do a lot of like overtime extras on the kicking? Because like, look, so you scored over 7,000 points, which is still the world record for first class points. How do you feel about that?
Well, look, it's a great achievement, but you know, you wonder, crikey me, that's why I've got arthritis at the bottom of my right foot. yeah, no, it's. I've been very lucky. I've not had no knees or no hips, but I've got arthritis at the bottom of my right foot. So something had to go. No, look, it's a great achievement. I'm very proud of it. And, you know, and I know jolly well that I've worked hard to get there to do it. I wanted to be the best.
Yeah.
I wanted to, you know, so I practiced in a field at home with a telegraph pole, and that I used to aim at the telegraph pole.
Wow.
And that's how, you know, you practiced.
Are there still elements from that? What advice would you give to kickers now? Like are there still things that correlate to the way in which you did it that you would say this still applies?
Oh, yeah. Look, you practice.
Yeah.
You have to practice to get your consistency. And, you know, sometimes you don't have to practice too long because you're in the rhythm. Other times you're just a bit rusty and you need to get some kicking done.
Because you do hear the difference with golfers, don't you? Some say, I'm just going to hit 25 balls and that's it. Others will be hitting hundreds.
Yeah, well, look, you can. Some, you know, I didn't have to practice too much when I was in the rhythm.
Yeah.
You know, you turned up, I could hit blindfolded. And another day, you know, I mean, it's like my last match against Scotland in '84, and it was one of those awful first Saturday of the season in January, and it was snow had melted, the rain was coming in horizontal, and I couldn't hit a barn door that day. Yeah, I got 2 out of 8. Two of the other kicks out of the 8 I missed were hit the post, but it was an awful day. I don't have days like that, but that was a bad day.
What stands out, because from all those, I think, to break down the points, there was 1,800 for Notts, 4,427 for Leicester, 240 for England, 88 for Lions, and 782 for Rep Rugby, which someone said was for Leicestershire, and the county rugby, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, divisional rugby.
Yeah,
I was not Links and Derby, so I wasn't Leicestershire.
What was what stands out from those? Which was when you look at all those kicks? I mean, I don't know what the breakdown is of tries to kick percentage either, but
no, I don't. No. You know, obviously, I when I came back from being dropped in '81 for a whole season not the whole season, the last 2 games in the 5 Nations, and then the next 2 the following year, Marcus Rose came into the team, and then I was picked to go to France away in '82, and I had a good game. I wanted, you wanted to prove a point.
Yeah,
and I kicked very well in that day. You know, important kicks, and that's you know, people call that the penalties were boring, but I look at the game now, I see that, especially at Leicester, you know, they don't kick a goal; they just kick to the 5 metre line, and then we just see 5 minutes of people people trying to get over the line from 5 metres out. Yeah, and that, you know, at least you kicked the goal, came back, and we played rugby.
Yeah, but presumably with you in the side, they had a bit of more assurity. So let's just get the points and move over.
Yeah. No, my old Chalky again, Chalky White, keep the scoreboard ticking over. That was his one of his sayings. Keep that scoreboard ticking over, and you know, and that's what you tried to do.
So, like after the Grand Slam, you like you said in that 81 season, you got was it the 81 season you got dropped, and then but you went on a tour to Argentina. Like this was just before the Falklands started in 82.
Yeah.
What was that like? Was there there was because that felt like a war that was building. So I'm guessing the atmosphere was a bit interesting.
Well, it was military run. Argentina was so. There was, I mean, there was nobody in the streets and things like that. You've never seen such a quiet place. It was unbelievable. The rugby was great.
Yeah,
the steaks were great.
Yeah.
So we did. It was, and the red wine was great.
So that must just stay the same.
But it was a very strange. So we used to have a liaison officer used to come with us to training and things like that. But the day before we should have played the first test, he didn't appear, and we went to training at this ground, and like the groundsman said, no training, you know, like trying. Yeah. Anyway, Billy, like led from the front says no. Anyway, we got bitten by mosquitoes to galore. Yeah, you know, so we drew that test. We were itchy. We never slept that night because the bites on our.
So the guy was trying to warn you off because it was like an infestation, more or less.
Yeah.
Was there atmosphere? Because, like, you know, a lot of the tours after that, after the war, you know, everyone talked about some of the early '90s tours when the crowd was particularly sort of anti-English. Yeah. Was there that sort of vibe as well before? Was it not?
Not really. I mean, the crowd was very
vociferous.
Yeah. I mean, it was yeah. And but the rugby, I thoroughly enjoyed the rugby. We won the second test, and you know, we were the first Northern Hemisphere side to win down in Argentina. So yeah, that was pretty good. You know, it was good rugby. I probably played some of my best rugby for England down there.
What was it that had made it so tough? Why do you think sides hadn't managed to achieve that sort of victory down there?
Well, the Argentinians were physical, good rugby players, and it was a good contest. Yeah. You know, it was a proper tough game of rugby. You know, and that when you go on tours, I mean, the rugby needs to be meaningful.
Yeah,
I mean, they went to Canada in the USA, and which was 4 weeks of wasted time because it wasn't meaningful rugby. You know, I know you got to, I mean, the rugby union were going out there to try and promote the game of rugby, and which I suppose you have to do, but they could have taken a B team out there, and they made them. I mean, some of us were wondering whether we wanted to go or not, and they sort of the bit of persuasion by the twin. Well, if you don't go, you probably won't play for England again. You know, like, oh, all right, then we'll go. And I mean, it was a poor tour rugby-wise.
And then, like, 82, you're back in the England side. And then you're there when you beat France. But whatever happens there, that story, and everyone talks about that victory, they tend to talk about Colin Smart drinking aftershave. Can you tell me this story firsthand as someone who'd have been around that? What was Colin like, and how did this come about?
Colin was an affable prop, as all props are. Now, I mean, obviously, we'd won the game. The press had written us off, and as soon as we got back into the changing room, there was some beers arrived, and we had some beers, and then we went back to the hotel, had a few more beers, went to the dinner, and the French team hadn't turned up. So at the French dinner, because the squad was 21 then, and the captain sat up on the top table, which was Steve Smith, there was 2 tables of 10 where we sat, and so we started having games, drinking. Now in France, there's so many gifts they give you, all sorts of things like that, and there's some aftershave lotion in a little bottle. And we were going round, and it was 1 versus 1, and like when it came round to Maurice Colclough, it was him versus Colin. And what Maurice had done, because of the white wine on the table, he poured his aftershave lotion out, poured some white wine, cleaned his bottle out, and put some more white wine in it, and then screwed the top on and put it back on the table again. So when it came round to his go, he just got up, just took the top off the bottle and put it in his glass and drank it. Now nobody, I mean, lots of people didn't know that Maurice had done that, but nobody would ever put that Maurice would do. You know,
It doesn't sound like it. Read the feature on it. It's incredible.
That's the sort of thing Maurice would do. Anyway, Colin got it, and he just took it out the bottle, and everybody was going, no, and that, like he came down here, and like you could see him, he would get. And then we had the RFU doctor, a very good guy, Leo Walton, took him to the toilets and tried to make him ill, and he didn't. So the ambulance was called, and
but he survived.
He survived, but he was better than we were the next day.
To whatever hospital.
He had his stomach pumped out, and we still all had all the bloody alcohol or whatever we drank that night.
So he's ready to go again.
Yeah.
Either way, people, don't try that at home, kids.
No. It was a very amusing night in Paris.
And then you're back in the Lions squad comes out. Did you expect to be in the Lions? Because this was like your big ambition to get in the Lions, and
No, I knew I'd have a chance. The time before, in 1980, when we won the Grand Slam, where a lot of the England players went on the tour, I didn't expect to get in the side. Well, could have got. Andy Irvine was number 1 choice, so that was easily, and then Bruce Hay was the second choice. So I've always, whether you like it or not, you just have to go with what the selectors do, and so when you sort of make yourself available, are you available to go on tour for the British Lions? Yes, and so you've had that letter, so you're about one of 90 players that have been asked.
Yeah,
but you're in the thoughts of the selectors. So yeah.
What was it like being part of still the squad? Because you talked about the first choices there, etc. So you presumably you wanted to be in the test side, but you were also just happy to be there at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just thoroughly enjoyed the tour. I made a good friend of Colin Deans, who was the hooker. He lives down in Stamford, near Stamford and Kettering. So I'm having lunch with him tomorrow. It was a good tour. Yeah, I could criticise it a little bit, but there's no point.
But was it always gonna? It was always gonna be a tough ask to beat New Zealand anyway, away at least.
It was, but I mean, I will go again. You've got to get selection right, and they didn't. I think Peter Wheeler should have gone as captain on that tour. Well, I'm biased. You just have to. I'm a big believer that you must get the selection right.
Was Peter Wheeler one of the best players you played with?
Yeah. Oh, easily one of the best players.
What was it about him? Because again, he gets named by virtually every player that's linked to that club. And
well, he looks like a saint, but plays like the devil. So he's a hard man and ruthless, and you want him on your side.
What was it like to be able to then? Because then you beat the All Blacks playing for England. So tell me about that.
The first one was the Midlands beat the All Blacks on a Tuesday night.
Oh yeah, of course.
I thoroughly enjoyed that because, when we was in New Zealand, they were sort of saying, our 5th team could beat the Lions and things like that. All right. So it was great to sort of beat the All Blacks.
How did that game pan out? Because, you know, it was a strong All Black side as well. You're the Midlands side. I'm guessing there was a good chunk of Leicester in there.
Yeah, I mean, the Midlands, there were some good rugby players in the Midlands side at that time. And Murray Mexted, he cleared a ball out of his 22 and I retrieved it on the halfway line. And I hit the sweetest drop kick I've ever done in my life. It sailed over. Absolutely sailed over, yeah. Yeah. So I was on a high on that Tuesday after we'd beaten the All Blacks. And I didn't go to reception because I had to be at Hexham Market next morning to be buying sheep. So, yeah.
That's probably good. And then how soon after was the England game?
10 days, I think it was. So that was on the Tuesday, and then on a week on Saturday, we played the All Blacks at Twickenham, and that was a tough game.
But it must have helped the fact that, you know, a good few of you had already beaten them and everyone had seen them. It was like, do you know what? This side is doable.
Yeah, very much so.
And what was the preparation like before the game?
I always found that the England preparation, I mean, the coaches we had was always good, and the players built into it, and there wasn't so much of the swapping of players as much, although I got dropped. But there wasn't so much of the dropping of players in those early 80s compared with what was happening in the 70s.
Yeah.
But, you know, obviously confidence and the All Blacks have been beaten by the Midlands, and that's a bit similar to when the North beat the All Blacks. They can be beat. And, that was a great day. Great day. How
does that stand out amongst all your greatest games, beating the All Blacks for England?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's as a boy, you're brought up with, you know, well, the Hacker and the All Blacks were so good, and so yes, I mean, it's probably like footballers wanted beating Brazil. You know, it's up there. You're beating the best side in the world.
And then you retired in '89. So was your last club game the final?
Yeah.
So was this did this feel like it was the end of an era for Leicester as well? Because Bath had started to get strong around early before that.
It's not the end of a player's never. You know, there's always another player to come in, and a lad who came in fullback for me was a lad called John Liley, good player. And so, you know, the game still keeps going on. You know, it doesn't matter the change of people and personnel.
But that rivalry with Bath was certainly coming through, wasn't it, in the early 80s? Because obviously they weren't really there before the Cup. You know, and so
no. Well, they were coming in back in that late 80s, and 90s. The Bath, I mean, well, they had some good players. They had as good a club side as club side could be, in those days. Yeah, no. There's one of the players lives here in Nottinghamshire who played Paul Simpson. So we often have a bit of a dig at each other about, yeah. Did
you feel you ticked every box you could imagine with your playing career?
Oh yeah, I think I have. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's it's like now, I come and watch Newark play because I want to see 15 amateurs play against 15 amateurs at rugby and enjoy it. The professional game for me now has got too boring, and I'm not saying it's a wasted Saturday to go and watch them, but I don't enjoy it as much as seeing young lads playing rugby and enjoying the game, and which I don't think there's a game I ever played that I didn't enjoy, one way or another. Yeah,
but it's interesting as well because obviously there was then a gap of over a decade when you weren't involved professionally, but then you came back to Leicester. In a full-time capacity in 2001. So you'd done 10 years of farming, just full-time, not playing rugby. And then you came back in a professional role with Leicester as...
Yeah.
What was your job title? Were you chief scout or what was the actual...
No, academy manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
And tell me about because there wasn't academies, there wasn't RFU academies as we know it. And this was Leicester deciding, right,
yeah,
we need an academy.
Well, Leicester had a very good youth team anyway. So all the likes of Martin Johnson and all these guys Graham Roundtree, all came through that system. So I think Leicester, with the money that they'd made, could put aside making it more professional, the academy, or the Leicester Academy that it was going to be called. And then obviously 2 years later, the RFU set up the national academies, and so Leicester became one of the 14 academies in the country.
That was probably like a seamless transition, I imagine. Was
Well,
it? No arguments between club and country when the RFU's taken over the academies?
No, it was. This was the best thing. It was going to be the best for the youngsters to have some more dedication, training, coaching, and all the things that will help them be a better player.
But luckily, you got your job that you had to apply for again.
I had to apply for it again, and but I found it quite funny. And why did we? There was myself and a guy called Andy Key, who excellent guy. He's now looking after Oundle. Yeah. It was on the sort of the paperwork. I had not done too much paperwork and things like that, and he came from that system in business. So anyway, I went on a course, management course, and learned a few things, and and then it comes to man management, and
so that wasn't one of your skill sets as a player, man management. Were you very much in your father's mold as a farmer on your own kind of thing? Or?
I won't say look, I'm a team man. I've always have been a team man, but I'm when as a goal kicker, you have to channel yourself to do your own thing, I like a beer, but I wasn't one of those that wanted to stop on a away match
to get a bottle of aftershave
and drink all night. That wasn't my cup of tea. I'd rather get nearer home and have a beer when I got home.
When you were in that academy, what sort of players did you have? Who was in your first sort of set of academy ones? Does any stand out?
Well, let's think. Well, eventually, I mean, you've got your Dan Coles, Tommy Youngs. They came through. That's the first initial ones. I'm just trying. I'm usually pretty good on this, but I can't think of those first. Brett Deacon. So like Dan Coles, he was a back row forward, and we put him up to prop, and we sent him to Bedford, and Bedford were excellent with him. They had him on the bench, and Martin Hines was a coach there, and obviously being a prop, I helped him enormously, put him on for 10-15 minutes at the end of the game, and he learnt his trade and that, and then that was part of my job, is then putting them out to other clubs. And so I think Dan had a season, and definitely Tom Coles had a season at Nottingham.
And there was always that partnership with the Championship club as well. So you've actually seen the benefit of the Championship, because obviously we're talking in light of the news.
The one thing I really hate in the job I had was I wanted to have that relationship with the I'm a big believer that players need to play. Yeah. The only way the coaches are going to be able to coach the players, if they've seen them play, what they're going to improve on, what they need to work on, and getting them paired up to go and play at these clubs. And then I hated it when the head coach would sort of say, I'll need them here at training. That's just to hold a bloody pad, and that crucified me. And then of course they couldn't train with the side they're within, so they were put on the bench. He wasn't any good to anybody.
Yeah.
And that was it was one of my pet hates about the young lads. They needed to play. I mean, we used to have that Leicester have always had, we played second team rugby seriously. It wasn't a matter of just putting players out. We put their team out to play as a team. And
So you're building the units.
Andy Key was a leading coach with the second team. It's just how, how it is. I mean, Leicester were better than some other clubs, but it still infuriated you when you wanted these players to play games.
I think that's why some of the clubs they either opt in or out of that situation. There's a little bit of a halfway house, but I know I've heard this a few times from clubs where they've been told by the Prem club, don't sign a fly half. We're going to send this amazing fly half, but he needs to have game time.
Yeah.
And they end up sending 2 tight head props instead. That sort of thing seems to happen, or an over-reliance. We've had a few instances where sides have loaded their sides with too many champ players to get out of a situation. So there needed to be more clarification over it and say, right, this is where the role is. And I think that's why we've ended up in this situation where we are now, where, they've just pulled the drawbridge up, and that's no different really from, the last 5-6 years anyway.
No, well, and nothing's changed, has it really?
Where did you see the role of the champ? Did you think it could have built to?
Oh, I think I think it wants to be. It needs to be put at a higher pedestal, so it is helping the English rugby, because those young players need somewhere to play, and to learn, and and then they can play in their come back to Leicester or come back to Gloucester, come back, and it's like here we sit at Newark. These grassroots clubs are the foundation of players. So Joe Hayes, who is probably the only one who can hold his head up after the last game. He was a goalkeeper, and then he got chucked out of Forest Academy or whatever, and his mother found him a club, Nottingham Moderns. Anyway, Joe wasn't quite happy, wasn't good enough for him there, and then he came here. He lived at Bingham, which is only just down the road, and and that was the start of his rugby career. And there's other players. I mean, you've got the Cheshams, who went to school at Sleaford and played at Kesteven or wherever. This is the grassroots where those players, those are put in that England white shirt. I bet most of those players were at a junior club somewhere, grassroots club, and then they progress, and and that pyramid goes up like that. And so when they get to that 20, 21, 22, they need to be playing rugby at I think the championship.
So as making sure the championship maintains a standard. The problem is, without the promotion relegation, there's less encouragement to invest, which means the sides, you don't just need those players, you need the other best ones to be training properly as well, the ones who are actually champ level, but they need to be training to make sure that the standard raises, so that you don't have this huge gap between your pro clubs and the next tier down, which is what's probably going to happen.
Well, it is going to happen, isn't it? Because
it's already happened to a degree, but
there isn't the money in the championship, is there anymore? I mean, I keep a touch of Nottingham, and I mean, I had some good seasons, full seasons at Nottingham, and thoroughly enjoyed my rugby there and the people, and I still go for lunches and things like that, catch ups with some of the players, and they were a big part of my rugby career, and to see the club, because the club played an out at Beeston, and it was a good rugby club, good rugby ground. And it's now I just see it. I feel sorry for the place, because it's it's not the standard it should be.
Yeah.
And you need standards.
Yeah.
So
it needs a collective thing to go forward. But then you also then moved to Northampton as well. That was like the sort of last big move.
What happened with Leicester? 2007, they made me chief scout.
Okay.
And then in 2010, Northampton asked Leicester if they could talk to me. Going there, and so Leicester said, "Yeah, no, you can talk to him," but they didn't think I'd go. That, but not at Northampton, they just offered a really challenging job of setting up the academy properly and then scouting. So it was a bit of a double.
So you got a bit of both.
But yeah.
What did you like about the scouting side? What were you looking for? How do you look for?
Oh, I love the scouting. I love to find players that nobody else sees.
How do you do that?
Well, it just, there's myself and Peter Walton.
Just go to a secondary school. Comp.
Peter Walton, we're stockmen.
Okay.
And you can look to when you're buying sheep in a ring, there's 50 odd sheep running around. You're making sure you're looking if one's got a bad leg or anything like that.
Yeah.
So your eyes always, your eyes train to watch as much as what's going on.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, and on the field, you watch the players play. I mean, it's all analysed now. It's all videoed, and but you still don't see what that player's doing because the camera's only there. You're not seeing what he's doing now.
The ball,
what he's doing off the ball. And so, you like. I enjoyed watching players and where people weren't talking about, or might have been talking about some other players, and and bringing them through. Yeah.
Is there anyone that stands out that you spotted like that?
Oh, there's a few. I mean, there's a few, all sorts. So Castro Giovanni. I went up to. This is when I was at Leicester. I went up to watch a European game. Leeds were playing, I think, Benetton or something like that, and I was gone up to look at the South African tight head for Leeds, but I saw this rough-haired, rough-arsed tight head from Benetton. I said, yeah, he's the man we want. And then so there was him.
What was it about him?
Oh, it's just an absolute socks down. He was just a ruffian, I watched a video of Marcus Ayeza and Simon Cohen. It's the quickest I've ever seen a video of a player, and after 10, 15 minutes, I said, right, we've got to sign this guy. And I went with Simon Cohen to Madrid. He had a Spanish agent, and we met him at Madrid airport and signed him up.
What was it in the video that he did? What did he do in a 10-minute video that would make you?
He was just so skillful. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs of front row play, but when you see somebody going into the scrum neat and tidy and is in charge, I think, oh yeah, you're not bad, lad. So when you watch, and he's a lot better now, but when you watch Eddie's Genge, he wasn't the best of scrummagers in his younger days, but he was clever enough never to let the man dominate him. Yeah. So he always took the scrum down or wheeled it round or whatever, just made it so till he got comfortable. Yeah. And I have a lot of time for Eddie's Genge. I think he's quite a bright boy underneath that bravado that he has. Yeah.
Were there any backs you'd come out with? There's a lot of interest, obviously, with Leicester. I guess the tight five will be the ones that.
Well, no. Well, let me just. So, the best player. Look, there's quite a few, but one of the best was Samu Manoa.
Okay.
I'd gone down to watch Saracens play the USA. Down at the Royal Artillery Ground, and watched the game, and it was all right. But I saw this American second row, big lad, ran well. Anyway, by pure luck, his agent had sent videos around to all the Premiership clubs about this character. So I said, look, I saw this bloke, I'm quite like him. Anyway, we talked to his agent, and so what I used to do when I was at Leicester, if there was anybody from away, you flew them to have a look at the club, and that's what we did with Samuel Manoa. So we brought him over in February from San Francisco. He was freezing to death, but you could see he wanted to play rugby. He wanted to bring it, and I tried to do my homework on him, and he was a bad boy. He'd spent a bit of time in prison, but not just a bit, being sort of a young lad out of. Anyway, he was as good as gold. Came over to Northampton, and I mean, as soon as he got proper coaching and everything like that, he just went up like that. And he was just a tremendous ball carrier. You want your forwards to be able to ball carry and get over that gain line, and he could do that all the time. Yeah, he was a superb player.
So the title-winning side a couple of years ago, the Northampton side, some of those would have come through your academy as well. Could you see that side building? Could you see?
Oh yes, because we at academy we won the under 18s academy league a couple of times. I thought some good players.
Who are the players that stand out from that sort of ones who went through to that side?
Well, I mean, he's not a star, but I mean, he was at the end of my Fraser Dingwall. I thought was to me, he was so intelligent player defensively and everything like that. He was just our John Dawes and you might not remember John Dawes.
No, we did an interview with him. I wasn't there. We weren't there at the time, but we did. We've done lots with him, and
John Dawes was the glue in the Welsh side when he was at 12, and Fraser Dingwall is like that at Northampton. Good player, good thinker of the game. Yeah, I mean there was a few. We had Lewis Ludlam. I brought Alex Mitchell down from Sale to come to Northampton. Freeman was. I watched him when I left. I watched him. He'd come. I mean, this is you. I just shake my head when I see that this lad was out of Norfolk, and he'd come down to Moulton College. And I watched him play for Moulton College, and I thought, how the dickens have Leicester missed this lad? He was, big and quick, and should be playing on the wing for England and not in the centre, because he can cause damage. And that, where is the room in international rugby? And that's why, France have found room on the wings to get. They create tries. The wingers create tries because they got some room to run in, and then we put Freeman in the centre. Yeah. I mean, he's not a centre because he's not the best at passes. And you think, oh dear.
Do you watch much top level rugby? Do you watch pro? Because I know you go home and away with these guys.
Yeah. I go. So last week or whenever England lost, I was at Matlock watching our first team win 21-19.
Which is a rarity this season.
Yes, it is.
Obviously, you're like 11th out of 12th, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, we've only won 4 games and we won 2 on the trot.
Oh, there you go. You're on a run.
There we go. We won a run. No, we lost at Walsall on Saturday. But then, I watch the games. I watch. I sort of get up early on a Sunday morning and watch and watch England play. And I go again. I know I've said this before with you today, selection. And I no doubt the players are very talented, what we've got. But it's getting the right selection. You need, for me, Tom Curry is the best 7 we've got. Play him at 7. I say to my Northampton colleagues about Mr. Pollard, what's his best position? They can't, these are not people involved at Northampton. They say, well, we don't know. Well, you need to have a position to play in. So Ireland had Byrne at 6, Doris at 8, and De Vlier at 7, that basically near enough my best. That's my balanced back row. Byrne was at the breakdown. He was strong enough over the ball. I mean, we've got near enough 3 open sides playing in our back row, and I know selection. I've always said, it's up to the coach and everything like that. But I think it's very important. I think it's a very important part of the of getting it right, because then once you get it right, you're in business.
Do you miss being involved in rugby on that level, the professional side? Where
look, I had. You
retired in what, 2017 was it?
2017 I retired, and a month later I was scouting again for Leicester.
Yeah, I heard we went back again.
And then I when COVID came, and that was just right. I was 68, 69, and it was I'd had enough in my car. Let's put it like that. Don't have enough. The rugby was fine, but sat in the car travelling. Yeah. I'd had my fill.
So if you see a player on a pitch, who do you call? Do you call Northampton or Leicester now?
Oh no, I mean, look, I'm Leicester.
Yeah.
I'm Leicester through and through, but Northampton, obviously, I've got a very fond spot because there's some very good people there, and it's a good club. Yeah, I mean, it is. I think it's a better club than Leicester, but I'm a Leicester person. So.
In terms of the way it's run and that sort of thing, it feels like it's a very. I mean, I'm not a Northampton Saints fan either, but I can see that they've got a good setup.
It's a good club. It's a good club.
Do you feel lucky to have achieved what you have done for your rugby life?
Yeah, I'm very much so. I'm as satisfied as anybody could be. I've got a smile on my face. I thoroughly enjoy the rugby, and I enjoy my days at Northampton. I think the academy now, there's a guy called Mark Hopley looking after the academy, and he's a farmer's son, and he's good. And I got him. So when I went to Northampton, he was captain of only like 27 years of age, but he was captain in the second team, and he was great with the lads. And he's also had heard how good he'd been coaching. He'd been coaching Milton Keynes, and anyway, they finished his contract and didn't offer him another contract. So I said to him, I said, how about coming to come coach on the academy? And he said, no, I still want to play rugby. I'm gonna still look. Anyway, how many 2 weeks later or whatever, he came back to me, and obviously his agent couldn't find him another club. His wife to be was a school teacher in Northampton, so she didn't really want to move. And so he was looking, right, well, can I come back, can I coach, but play a bit of part-time rugby? Yeah, not a problem. We can sort that out for you. And anyway, from there on, now he's now the academy manager, and it's like Phil Dowson. So when I was leaving, I was looking for somebody to replace me who I'd thought a lot of, and Phil Dowson was a man who was just finished playing at Worcester. He played at Northampton. Yeah, captain, articulate. You couldn't ask for a greater guy. And I'd got him over to Northampton, showing him around and like that. And Jim Manander said Dowson, what are you here for? He said, well, yeah, just had invited me over to come here and work with the academy for next year. And Jim went, no, come and see me in my office. I lost him. He went, and Jim put him onto the senior payroll, and I lost him. So
worked out all right, I guess, for Northampton.
Yeah. Hey, well, you couldn't ask for a better bloke.
Why do you think what is key to his success then? Why do you think he succeeded so well?
Because he's hard. Another one of those. He's hard as a rugby player, but as a person, very good person. I always think it's finding good people. If you find good people, you don't do far wrong. And he is one of those people. He's a good person. He's I have a lot of time for Phil Dowson. I think he's I think he's calm, he's angry at the right time, but he just knows how to manage the team. And what he's done, I mean, what Northampton have done, it's very English. It's probably one of the most English sides. The coaches are all mostly English. Players are mostly English, or mostly come through the academy, which is outstanding.
What advice you give to players? Because I presume you get a lot of young players, or you've had a few ask you, given you're a scout or were a scout, what's the best advice you give to kind of young players looking to try to make it in rugby or to get spotted?
Well, I mean, firstly, you've got to enjoy doing it. Secondly, you've got to work hard at it. You've got to make yourself, you've got to set yourself targets that you're going to get yourself better. You're not going to, you're not going to miss a tackle and things like that. Or, I'm not going to drop the ball. But if you drop the ball, we at Northampton, when I started at Northampton Academy, we had a great coach in Alan Dickens. And it was great because Alan was on the same wavelength as me. We didn't want to beast the players. So if they dropped the ball in training, go and run around the field. No, don't drop it again. Keep working at it.
Yeah.
We're not here there to beast them. We want them to try and improve. And they're not going to improve running around the field. They're missing all the passing drills. And that's what, I watched Northampton Academy under-18s beat Leicester 30-odd-0 just after Christmas. And Northampton would have won by more points if because they tried so many things in the centres and the backs. They kept spinning the ball or missing the pass, but they didn't get a bollocking for it. They got well done, well tried. Next time hope it'll come off.
Yeah.
And that, so from a point, he's managing a player, which I think a lot of coaches don't do very well, and then making sure, and the player needs to ask questions to that coach how he's got to do to improve. So there's a right time and the right place for all that, but you've got to work as a pair, the player and the coach. You've got to work as a pair to improve.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for your time, Dusty. It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us here at Newark, and here's to staving off relegation this season.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dusty.
We've got some vital games to play. I think we've only got about 5 games left, but
well, good luck and thank you very much.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.